The soft hum of the dormitory's climate system was the only sound breaking the 3 a.m. silence. When my bedroom door suddenly slid open, I jerked awake, my heart hammering against my ribs as a familiar blue glow filled the doorway. Zara stood there, her tall, willowy frame trembling, her usually pristine silver hair disheveled around her shoulders. Her luminescent skin pulsed with an anxious rhythm I'd learned to recognize. "Over the past 3 months of living together, Emma," she whispered, her voice carrying that musical quality that always reminded me of wind chimes. Can I sleep next to you tonight?" I sat up quickly, instantly alert. In all the time Zara had been part of the Etherean exchange program at our university, she'd never asked for anything like this. She was always so composed, so gracefully independent. Seeing her like this, clutching a blanket against her chest with those elegant 6-fingered hands shaking, sent alarm bells ringing through my mind. "What's wrong?" I asked, scooting over to make room on my narrow dorm bed. "You look terrified." She stepped into my room, her bare feet making no sound on the cold floor. The door hissed shut behind her, and I noticed how she immediately positioned herself so she could see both the door and the window. Her large, opalescent eyes darted nervously round the space before settling on my face. "There was something in my room," she said, her accent making the words sound like a lullaby despite their frightening content. "Something that should not exist in this dimension." I blinked, trying to process her words. "Like an intruder? Should I call campus security?" "No." She shook her head, causing her hair to shimmer like liquid mercury in the dim light. "Not a person. Not anything from your world or mine." It was she paused, searching for the right words in English. A shadow with hunger. It moved through the walls as if they were not there. My rational mind wanted to dismiss this as a nightmare, or maybe homesickness manifesting in strange ways. But I'd learned enough about Etherean physiology over the past months to know they didn't dream the way humans did. Their sleep cycles were different, more like meditation states. And Zara had never lied to me about anything, no matter how strange her explanations might sound. "Okay," I said, pulling back my covers. "Get in. We'll figure this out in the morning." She looked surprised, those beautiful eyes widening. "You believe me?" "Just like that, Zara. You're the most logical person I know. You've explained quantum mechanics to me using flower arrangements and somehow made it make sense. If you say something impossible was in your room, then something impossible was in your room." A soft smile crossed her features as she climbed onto the bed beside me. Her skin was always warm, a few degrees higher than human normal, and she smelled like ozone and starlight. I'd grown to find both sensations comforting over our months as roommates. "Your species is remarkable," she murmured, settling beside me with that fluid grace all Ethereans seemed to possess. "On my world, we would demand extensive proof before accepting such a claim." "Yeah, well, humans are pretty good at accepting weird stuff when it comes from people we trust." I pulled the blanket over both of us, trying to ignore how my pulse quickened at her proximity. "Besides, you've been teaching me about dimensional theory. I know there are things out there we don't understand." She turned to face me in the darkness, her natural bioluminescence providing just enough light to see her expression. It was watching me. "Emma." I could feel its attention like ice against my consciousness when I tried to reach out with my sensitivity abilities to understand what it wanted. It felt like touching poison. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the dorm's aggressive air conditioning. "Has anything like this ever happened before? Back on Etheria?" "Never," she whispered. "My people can sense dimensional fluctuations naturally. It's how we learn to travel between worlds. But this thing, it was from somewhere else entirely, somewhere wrong." I reached out instinctively, covering her hand with mine. Her fingers were longer than human normal, with an extra joint that allowed for incredibly precise movements. She'd once picked a lock using nothing but her fingertips, and had done it faster than I could with proper tools. "Hey," I said softly, "whatever it was, it's not getting to you while I'm here. I promise." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Wonder, maybe, or gratitude. Her free hand came up to touch my cheek, and her skin felt like warm silk. "You would protect me," she said, and it wasn't quite a question. Even from something you do not understand. Of course I would. The words came out more intensely than I'd intended, carrying with them feelings I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. You're important to me, Zara. More important than you probably realize. Her breath caught, and for a moment the space between us seemed charged with possibility. Then she settled closer, her head finding the hollow of my shoulder as if it belonged. There, thank you, she whispered against my collarbone, for believing me, for protecting me, for being you. As I felt her gradually relax into sleep, her breathing evening out into the slow rhythm I'd grown familiar with, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what we'd gotten ourselves into. Whatever had frightened her wasn't just going to disappear, because we'd had a touching moment. Something told me this was only the beginning, but as I listened to her soft breathing and felt the gentle warmth of her against my side, I knew I'd face whatever came next. Some things were worth fighting the impossible for. The morning light filtering through my dorm window revealed a Zara I'd never seen before. Usually, she woke gracefully, her bioluminescence fading naturally as consciousness returned. Today, she startled awake with a sharp intake of breath, her skin flaring bright blue before dimming to its normal soft glow. The resonance is still there, she whispered, pressing her fingertips to her temples. I can feel it echoing in the quantum layers around us. I sat up, studying her face. Dark circles shadowed her opalescent eyes, and her usually perfect posture had a tense quality that made my chest tight with worry. What kind of resonance? Like, she paused, searching for human words to describe something alien, like the smell of smoke after a fire. The thing that visited me left traces in the dimensional fabric. My phone buzzed with an incoming video call from Juno, my best friend since childhood. I almost declined, but Zara nodded toward the device. Answer it. Perhaps an outside perspective will help. Juno's familiar face filled the screen, her dark curls wild from sleep. Emma, you look terrible. Rough night with the gorgeous alien roommate. She waggled her eyebrows suggestively, then noticed Zara in the background. Oh, hi Zara. Sorry, didn't know you were there. It's quite all right, Juno, Zara replied with that formal politeness she used when nervous. Emma has mentioned you frequently, so what's going on? Emma only calls this early when something's seriously wrong. I exchanged glances with Zara, who nodded encouragingly. Zara had some kind of encounter last night. Something appeared in her room, something not from Earth or Etheria. Juno's expression shifted from sleepy confusion to sharp attention. She was studying theoretical physics, with a focus on interdimensional theory. If anyone would understand what we were dealing with, it would be her. Describe it, she said, pulling out a notebook. Everything you can remember. Zara spoke carefully, detailing the shadow entity's appearance, its behavior, and most importantly, the way it had felt to her enhanced senses. Juno scribbled notes, occasionally asking for clarification on technical terms. This sounds like a dimensional predator. She said finally, they're theoretical, but the math checks out. Entities that exist in the spaces between realities, feeding on energy signatures that don't belong to their native dimension. My blood chilled. Feeding. Etherian consciousness operates on different quantum frequencies than human, Juno explained. To something from another dimension entirely, Zara would be like a beacon in the dark, exotic, concentrated energy. Zara had gone very still beside me. It was hunting me specifically. We need to check your room, I said, standing and pulling on yesterday's clothes. If it left traces like you said, maybe we can figure out how to keep it away. The walk down the hall to Zara's room felt longer than usual. She stayed close to my side, her shoulder brushing mine with each step. When we reached her door, she hesitated, her hand hovering over the scanner. I can feel it, she whispered. The wrongness. It's like trying to breathe underwater. I covered her hand with mine, helping her press it to the scanner. The door hissed open, revealing her normally pristine room in chaos. Her carefully arranged crystals had been scattered across the floor, their surfaces somehow dulled. The air felt thick, oppressive, and tasted of copper pennies. The temperatures dropped at least 10 degrees. I observed, my breath misting slightly. Zara stepped inside cautiously, her skin beginning to glow brighter as she extended her senses. There, she pointed to the wall beside her bed. Do you See it. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then my eyes adjusted, and I noticed it. A patch of wall that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It was roughly person-shaped, like a shadow burned into the surface. "Juno, are you still there?" I asked, turning my phone toward the anomaly. "Holy shit," she breathed. "That's dimensional scarring. Emma, whatever came through there, it forced its way between realities. That's not supposed to be possible without massive energy expenditures." Zara approached the mark, her luminescence pulsing in rhythm with something I couldn't perceive. "It's learning. Each time it phases into our reality, it becomes more stable, more real." "What does it want?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "Me," she said simply. "My energy signature is unique here. I'm the only Etherean for thousands of light years. To a dimensional predator, I'm irreplaceable prey." The room suddenly felt smaller, more confined. I found myself moving closer to Zara, some primitive instinct demanding I stay between her and any potential threat. "There has to be a way to stop it," I said. "Some kind of dimensional shielding or Emma." Zara's voice was soft, but there was something in it that made me turn. She was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Why are you doing this? Helping me, I mean. Your species doesn't typically involve themselves in problems that don't directly affect them." The question caught me off guard. I could have given her the easy answer, the one about friendship and doing the right thing. Instead, I found myself being honest in a way that surprised us both. "Because the thought of something happening to you terrifies me more than any shadow monster could," I said. "Because somewhere between teaching you about pizza and listening to you sing those Etherean lullabies, you became the most important person in my world." Her eyes widened, and her bioluminescence shifted to a warmer, golden hue I'd never seen before. "Emma, I know it's complicated," I continued quickly. "Different species, different worlds, different everything. But I can't pretend I don't feel this way anymore." She stepped closer, raising one graceful hand to cup my cheek. "On Etheria, we have a concept called soulfire, the recognition of a consciousness that complements your own. Perfectly, I thought. It was merely poetry until I met you." Before I could respond, the temperature in the room plummeted further. The dimensional scar on the wall began to ripple. "Like disturbed water, it's coming back," Zara whispered, her skin flaring bright with alarm, "and it's stronger than before." I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door. "Then we get out of here. Now." As we ran down the hallway, Zara's words echoed in my mind. "Soulfire, the recognition of a consciousness that complements your own perfectly." Whatever was hunting her would have to go through me first, and I was beginning to realize that I'd fight anything, even impossible things from other dimensions, to keep her safe. The campus security office smelled like stale coffee and disappointment, but Marcus Rivera behind the desk was wide awake despite the early hour. He was one of the few security guards who'd actually bothered to learn about the exchange students' unique needs, and I'd always appreciated his no-nonsense approach to weird situations. "Let me get this straight," he said, leaning back in his chair as he studied Zara's dimensional readings on his tablet. "Something is stalking your roommate through walls, and it's getting stronger each time it appears." "That's the simplified version." "Yes," I replied, trying to keep the exhaustion out of my voice. We'd been explaining the situation for 20 minutes, and I could see Zara growing more agitated with each passing moment. Marcus rubbed his graying beard thoughtfully. "I've seen some strange things since the exchange program started. Etherians aren't the only species on campus anymore. We've got students from 6 different worlds now, and each one comes with their own complications." "You believe us?" Zara asked, her voice carrying a note of surprise. "Kid, last month I had to deal with a crystalline student whose emotional state was literally setting fire to her dorm room. 2 weeks ago, a void walker accidentally phased through 3 floors and got stuck in the basement. At this point, interdimensional predators are just another Tuesday for me." Relief flooded through me. Finally, an adult who wasn't going to dismiss this is imagination or stress. "What can we do?" I asked. Marcus pulled up a different screen on his tablet. "First, we're moving both of you to the secure wing. Reinforced walls, dimensional stabilizers, the works. It was designed for exactly this kind of situation." There are others like me? Zara's luminescence shifted to an interested blue-green. Not exactly like you, but we've had students targeted by extra-dimensional entities before. There's a whole protocol. He stood, grabbing his keys. Come on. I'll show you to your new quarters while we figure out a long-term solution. The secure wing was hidden behind an unmarked door. On the top floor of the dormitory, inside, the walls hummed with energy, and I could feel the difference in the air, thicker, more stable somehow. Our new room was larger than our old ones, with 2 beds and a sitting area equipped with monitoring devices. The dimensional stabilizers will make it much harder for anything to phase in here, Marcus explained, but they're not perfect. We need to understand more about what we're dealing with. That's when Nyx arrived. She was another Etherean, though her appearance differed significantly from Zara's. Where Zara was tall and willowy with silver hair, Nyx was more compact, with deep, purple skin and hair that seemed to move with its own internal breeze. Her eyes were solid black, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonic undertones that made my teeth ache. I felt the dimensional disturbance from across campus, she said without preamble. Something is hunting one of my people. Zara's posture straightened, and she began speaking in rapid Etherean. The language sounded like music mixed with mathematics, all flowing tones and complex rhythms. Nyx responded in kind, and I watched their conversation with growing concern as both their bioluminescent patterns shifted to deeper, more troubled hues. What are they saying? I asked Marcus quietly, no idea. I've got translation software, but Etherean has emotional and dimensional components that don't convert well to human languages. Finally, Zara turned back to us. Nyx says there have been similar attacks on other worlds. Ethereans living far from home, isolated from their quantum support networks. The entities target us specifically because we're more vulnerable when separated from our people. But I'm not separated, I said before I could stop myself. You have me. Both Ethereans stared at me, and I felt heat rise in my cheeks. I mean, you're not completely alone. You have friends here, people who care about you. Nyx tilted her head, studying me with those unsettling black eyes. She said something to Zara in their language, and Zara's skin flushed a warm gold. What? I demanded. She says your quantum signature has begun harmonizing with mine, Zara explained softly. It's something that happens when Ethereans form deep emotional bonds, usually only with other Ethereans. Is that bad? No, Zara said quickly. It's extraordinary. But it means you're connected to her now, Nyx finished. In accented English, the predator won't just be hunting her anymore. It will be hunting both of you. Marcus cursed under his breath. Great. So now we have 2 targets instead of 1, actually. Nyx continued. It might be exactly what we need. Etherean quantum harmony is one of our strongest defenses against dimensional intrusions. If Emma's consciousness is truly bonding with Zara's, they might be able to resist the entity together. I looked at Zara, seeing my own fears reflected in her opalescent eyes. What does that mean, exactly? This quantum harmony thing. It means your minds are learning to resonate on the same frequency, she explained. It's how Etherean bonded pairs share thoughts, emotions, even sensory experiences. It's supposed to be permanent. The weight of that word, permanent, settled between us like a physical thing. I thought about everything that implied, the changes it would bring to both our lives, the complications it would create. Then I thought about losing her to some shadow monster from another dimension. And the choice became simple. Okay, I said. What do we need to do? Zara's eyes widened. Emma, you don't understand. This isn't something you can undo. If we complete the bonding process, you'll be tied to me for life. You'll feel what I feel, share my dreams, age at the same rate I do. You'll essentially become partially Etherean. Will it keep you safe? It should make us both stronger, yes, but then we do it. I reached for her hand, feeling that familiar warmth of her skin against mine. I told you I'd protect you. This is just another way of doing that. NYX made a sound that might have been laughter. Your human is very determined, sister. She's not Zara began, then stopped, looking at me. Are you mine, I mean? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with implications and possibilities. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the secure room in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere out there, a dimensional predator was waiting for darkness to fall. Yeah, I said quietly. I think I am. Her smile could have powered the entire campus. The bonding process wasn't what I'd expected. I'd imagined something mystical, maybe involving crystals or ancient rituals. Instead, Nyx had us sit facing each other while she monitored our quantum signatures on a device that looked suspiciously like a modified tablet. Breathe together, she instructed. Let your consciousness settle into the same rhythm as Zara's. It started subtly, a gentle warmth spreading from where our hands touched, a sense of something vast and patient waiting just beyond the edge of my awareness. Then, gradually, I began to feel what Zara felt, the constant low-level anxiety that came from being so far from home, the loneliness of being the only one of her kind in a world of aliens. And underneath it all, a growing warmth directed at me that made my heart race. You care about me too, I whispered, wonder coloring my voice as I felt her emotions directly. More than I should, she replied, and I could feel her surprise at my ability to sense her feelings. More than is wise for beings from different worlds. The harmony is stabilizing faster than usual, Nyx observed. Usually this process takes days, not hours. As the sun set completely, casting the room into darkness broken only by the soft glow of Etherian skin, I felt the first tendrils of something else touching the edge of our shared consciousness. Something cold and hungry and wrong. It's coming. Zara breathed, her grip on my hands tightening. The dimensional stabilizers began to hum more loudly, but I could feel the entity pushing against them, testing their strength. Through our bond, I experienced Zara's terror as a physical thing, sharp and overwhelming. I can feel it too now, I said, amazed and terrified at the same time. It's like ice against my mind. The bonding process is making you more sensitive to dimensional fluctuations, Nyx explained, her own luminescence flickering with alarm. But it's also making you stronger. Together, you're more than the sum of your parts. A sound like breaking glass echoed through the room, and suddenly the temperature plummeted. The entity materialized slowly this time, taking form in the center of the room like smoke condensing into shadow. It was taller than before, more solid, its darkness so complete it seemed to eat the light around it. But this time, when it turned its attention toward Zara, I felt its hunger directly through our bond. It wasn't just feeding on Etherian energy, it was feeding on isolation, on fear, on the loneliness of beings separated from their kind. That's why it targets exchange students. I realized aloud, the separation, the loneliness, that's what makes them vulnerable. The shadow entity paused, as if it had heard me. Its featureless face turned toward me, and I felt its attention like ice water in my veins. It knows I can sense it now, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. And it knows you're no longer isolated, Nyx added grimly, which means you're no longer ideal prey. The entity let out a sound like wind through a graveyard and lunged toward Zara. Without thinking, I threw myself between them, our joined hands pulling her behind me. The shadow's claws passed through me harmlessly, but I felt its rage as a physical blow. It can't touch you, Zara gasped in realization. Your quantum signature is harmonized with mine now, but you're still fundamentally human. You exist in a state it can't fully interact with. The entity circled us, its form flickering between solid and translucent. Through our bond, I could feel Zara's mind working, processing what she was learning about our opponent. It needs us to be afraid, she said suddenly. Fear creates the quantum resonance it feeds on. But when we're bonded like this, supporting each other, we're not afraid, I finished, understanding flooding through me. Not the way it needs us to be. The shadow lunged again, this time directly at me. I stood my ground, feeling Zara's strength flowing through our connection, her courage reinforcing my own. The entity's claws passed through me again, but this time it recoiled as if burned. Your combined consciousness is creating a resonance it can't digest, Nyx observed with academic fascination. It's like offering a predator poison instead of prey. The entity began to retreat, its form becoming less stable. But instead of disappearing completely, it hovered at the edge of the room, watching us with patient malevolence. It's not giving up, Zara said, her voice tight with strain. It's learning, adapting. Next time it comes, it will be different, as if in response to her words. The shadow spoke for the first time, its voice like the sound of stars dying. I will have you. Then it vanished, leaving only a lingering cold and the faint smell of ozone. Well, Marcus said from the doorway, where he'd been watching with a mixture of fascination and horror. That was new. They don't usually talk. Professor Vale appeared behind him, her graying hair disheveled and her clothes hastily thrown on. As the head of the xenobiology department, she'd been called in to consult on the situation. The entity is evolving, she said without preamble, studying the readings on her instruments. Each interaction is teaching it new strategies. This is unprecedented. What do we do? I asked, suddenly feeling very young and very out of my depth. We prepare, Zara said, firmly, her skin pulsing with determined light. It wants to hunt us? Then we become hunters instead. Through our bond, I felt her resolve, her intelligence turning toward the problem like a weapon being sharpened. And I realized that whatever came next, we would face it together. The predator had made one crucial mistake. It had given us time to become something it couldn't understand, to minds working as one, to hearts beating in harmony, to beings from different worlds united by something stronger than fear. It wanted to hunt us. Let it try. 3 days passed before the entity returned, 3 days that we used to prepare. Professor Vale had consulted with xenobiology experts across 6 different worlds, while Marcus coordinated with dimensional security specialists. Nix worked with us to strengthen our quantum bond, teaching us techniques that had been developed by her people over millennia. But most importantly, Zara and I learned to truly function as one. The bond between us had deepened beyond anything either of us had expected. I could feel her thoughts brushing against mine, sense her emotions as clearly as my own. When she concentrated on dimensional theory, I found myself understanding concepts that should have been far beyond my human comprehension. When I focused on practical problem solving, she gained access to intuitive leaps that Etherean logic alone couldn't provide. You're becoming something new, Nix observed on the 3rd evening as she monitored our synchronized brainwaves. Neither fully human nor fully Etherean, but something unprecedented, a hybrid consciousness. Is that dangerous? I asked, though through our bond, I could feel that Zara already knew the answer, unknown. Nix replied honestly, but powerful. Your combined consciousness is generating quantum resonances I've never seen before. That night, as we settled into the single bed we'd taken to sharing, Zara turned to face me in the dim light of her natural glow. Are you afraid? She asked softly, of what we're becoming. I considered the question seriously. 3 days ago, I'd been a perfectly ordinary human college student studying literature and dreaming of maybe teaching someday. Now I was quantum bonded to an alien, could sense dimensional fluctuations, and was preparing to fight a shadow monster from another reality. No, I said, surprising myself with how true it was. I'm afraid of losing you. I'm afraid of not being strong enough to protect you, but becoming something more than human if it means staying with you. That doesn't scare me at all. She smiled, and through our bond, I felt her love for me like sunlight after a long winter. I never expected to find my soul fire so far from home. She whispered, using the Etherean term that I now understood meant something deeper than love, deeper than bonding. It meant the recognition of a soul perfectly complementary to your own, the other half of your cosmic equation. Maybe that's why it took an interdimensional monster to make us both realize what we had. I replied, reaching up to trace the elegant line of her cheekbone. That's when the temperature in the room began to drop. It's here, Zara breathed, her luminescence flaring bright with alarm. But this time, we were ready. The entity materialized in the corner of the room, but it was different now. Larger, more solid, its darkness somehow deeper than before. It had learned from our previous encounters, adapted to our defenses. I have evolved. It spoke, its voice like the sound of reality tearing. I can touch you now. It lunged toward us, but instead of cowering or defending, we did something it didn't expect. We stood up and walked directly toward it. Through our bond, I felt Zara's consciousness merge more completely with mine. Our thoughts became one, our intentions unified. The quantum harmony between us intensified until the very air around us began to shimmer. "You hunt the isolated," I said, my voice carrying harmonic overtones that sounded like Zara's speech. "You feed on loneliness and fear. But we are not alone," Zara continued, her words carrying the solid certainty of human determination. "We are not afraid." The entity recoiled slightly, confusion rippling through its form. It had adapted to fight our individual defenses, but it hadn't expected us to become something entirely new. "We are bonded," we said in unison, our voices harmonizing in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "We are complete. We are what you can never be," to beings choosing to become one. Light began to emanate from our joined hands, not the soft glow of Etherean bioluminescence, but something brighter, more complex. It was the visible manifestation of our quantum bond. Our combined consciousness made manifest. The entity shrieked and lunged again, its claws finally solid enough to do real damage. But when it touched the light surrounding us, it recoiled as if burned. Where its darkness met our radiance, reality itself seemed to stabilize. The dimensional distortions it relied on smoothing out into normal spacetime. "You cannot exist," it hissed, its form beginning to waver. "We already do," I replied, feeling Zara's strength flowing through me, her knowledge of dimensional mechanics guiding my human intuition toward a solution I never could have found. Alone, together, we reached out with our bonded consciousness and did something impossible. We touched the entity's essence directly, not with physical contact, but with the fundamental force of our combined will, and we chose to heal it. The shadow monster wasn't evil. We realized through our expanded awareness, it was broken, a fragment of consciousness torn from its native dimension, driven to feed on others because it had forgotten how to be whole on its own. "You are alone," Zara said with infinite compassion, her empathy flowing through our bond to encompass even this creature that had hunted her. "You have been alone for so long that you forgot what it means to be complete." The entity's struggles slowed, its form becoming less aggressive, more confused. "We can't give you what you've lost," I said, understanding flooding through me. "But we can show you another way." Together, we extended our consciousness toward the wounded creature, not to fight it, but to offer it something it had never experienced, the choice to belong, to be part of something larger than itself. For a moment, just a moment, the entity's darkness flickered with the faintest hint of light, not the cold hunger that had driven it, but something warmer, recognition perhaps, or gratitude. Then it spoke one last time, its voice softer now, almost wondering. "I remember." And it was gone, not destroyed but transformed, returned to whatever dimension had birthed it with something it had lost long ago. The knowledge that it didn't have to be alone. The room returned to normal temperature, the dimensional distortions fading like ripples on a pond. Zara and I stood together in the sudden quiet, still glowing faintly with the residual energy of our bond. "It's over," I asked, hardly daring to believe it. "It's over," she confirmed, turning to face me fully, "and we did it without destroying anything. We healed it. We healed each other too," I realized, feeling the completeness of our bond, the way our consciousness had settled into perfect harmony. "Is this what soulfire feels like? This sense of being exactly where you belong?" "Yes," she whispered, her hands framing my face. "This is what it feels like to find the other half of your soul." When she kissed me, I tasted starlight and possibility, felt the warmth of a love that transcended species and worlds and the vast distances between stars. Through our bond, I experienced her joy as my own, her wonder at finding love in the most unlikely place with the most unlikely person. "So what happens now?" I asked when we finally broke apart. "I mean, I'm partially Etherean now, and you're partially human. Where do we fit in either of our worlds? We make our own world," she said simply. "Here, together, between the stars and the earth, we become the bridge between our peoples, the proof that love can exist across any distance, any difference." Outside our window, the first light of dawn was breaking across the campus. Students would be waking soon, going about their normal lives, unaware that last night, to beings from different worlds, had become something entirely new. "I love you," I said, the words carrying the weight of quantum certainty of a bond that had been tested by shadow and proven stronger than darkness. "And I love you," she replied, her bioluminescence pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat, my soul fire, my Emma, my home. In the distance, I could hear Nix explaining to Professor Vale and Marcus what had happened, her voice excited as she described the unprecedented nature of our bond. There would be questions to answer, papers to write, new protocols to establish for interspecies relationships. But right now, in this moment, there was only us, two minds thinking as one, two hearts beating in perfect synchronization, two souls that had found their match across impossible odds. The shadow was gone, banished not by violence, but by the simple, radical act of choosing love over fear. And we were just beginning when shadows crossed dimensions, a story of love transcending worlds, where the greatest weapon against darkness turns out to be the willingness to heal rather than harm, and the courage to become something new together.